If you're an Obama supporter, here's my challenge to you: is get on the internet, you're already on YouTube because you're watching the Magic Box on YouTube, okay? Run a search for Glenn Greenwald. Glenn Greenwald. That's Glenn with 2 N's. Green has 2 E's, okay? Glenn Greenwald. And my challenge would be watch at least a half hour. If you have more of an attention span, watch an entire hour. Can you do it? Watch an entire hour of Glenn Greenwald interviews, which there's hours and hours of them to see out there on the internet, and really listen to what he has to say and really think about it and really parse his statements. And if you don't believe it, run a Google on it and do your own fact checking. And so that's my challenge: is if you're so certain that voting for Obama is the way to go, can you watch an hour of Glenn Greenwald clips on YouTube without changing your mind? I would like to see that happen.
You can't handle the truth.
You can't handle the truth. All right, this is the Magic Box Talk Show. I'm Colin, Clyde, Denica, DeFoy.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for watching. I hope I pissed off a bunch of Obamabots because you've been getting on my nerves, okay? I don't think you can bully me. People try to bully me and all it does is put more fire in my belly. All right. So, we're here on the Magic Box Talk Show. I'm Colin, Campbell, Clyde. This is Denica DeFoy. We're at the Fun City store, also known as Dollar City, but we like Fun City better because it's more fun. That's right. And we're here to chat politics. Let's talk about WikiLeaks. What's new in WikiLeaks, Denica?
Well, Julian Assange had to basically tell the world and the United Nations what was going on again. And I think that, like I've said,
he released a video to the United Nations.
Yeah, that's my view of it. And you can see that video if you go to Russia Today, and probably all over the place now. But he's one of my heroes, and like I said, I've been kind of harassed for specializing in this, whatever you want to say. And I think it's really sad because I think almost everyone should consider Julian Assange and Bradley Manning heroes. And of course everybody has different opinions, but I think access to free information, and then of course not
freedom of press,
right, and then not torturing people seem pretty basic to me, like I've said, you know. But
what are you, some kind of flaming liberal with your not torturing people talk? Come on.
Yeah.
So, you know, that raises a few issues. I think that the fact that people would be offended that you have been a vocal advocate of WikiLeaks and of the mission of WikiLeaks, which is to share information with people of the world about what governments are doing.
Right, and even on my radio show, which I had on KRXA, which I'll just go ahead and say the name of it. Although I think it was a wonderful experience, but I definitely think that I was trolled for giving out real information. And it hurts my feelings, but it also hurts the audience, and it hurts the general area, because we were talking about Sean Hannity and joking about that before, but people actually listen to that stuff. And when you think about, even though, you know, maybe we're not as professional as we could be, I think that we come from the heart and we try to speak the truth as well. And I think that's so important, you know, as opposed to whatever Fox News does. I don't know exactly what that would be called. I guess negative propaganda.
I think that talking about WikiLeaks really kind of pushes people's party loyalty buttons. Like people who are really dyed-in-wool Democrats don't want you to talk about WikiLeaks because it sort of reveals some of the flaws of the current administration.
Yeah,
you think that's accurate?
Yeah, the lies, I think, because unfortunately we have right now, in my opinion, Republican Mitt Romney and then Republican Light with the Democrats who don't seem to stand up and also repeat the crazy points that the Republicans say as if it's a valid conversation, when they should say, no, we need to have a conversation about the 1% being welfare queens, not, you know, hurting women or talking silly things about rape, you know, like Todd Aiken style and that sort of thing.
That was absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
Well, you know, that's something I've noticed. I call it talking point creep.
Yeah.
Talking point migration. That I have encountered people on the internet who support Obama, who are saying some of the same sorts of things that Bush supporters were saying, say 5 or 6 years ago, 7, 8 years ago, as an argument for why you should vote for Obama. Is that something you've run into?
I have run into a lot of negative feedback for.
I guess I'm thinking, especially in terms of foreign policy, the arguments I've heard that are in defense of Obama's foreign policy, I'm going like, okay, it's deja vu all over again.
Well, a lot of the people that say, oh, well, you just have to put this aside and you can't think about this because you need to vote for the lesser of two evils.
This is an election year.
Right.
We can't...
Don't throw your vote away.
We can't have all these complaints going around, right.
Right, and then they also say, well, look at Mitt Romney. What do you think he's going to do to Bradley Manning? What do you think he's going to do to the Supreme Court? Which is... almost valid thinking, but to me it almost seems like an either-or fallacy where they're saying you can either vote for this man or this man, when in reality you can perhaps not vote, or you can vote for a third party, or even exercise your right to protest at the voting booth, so.
Well, I think this is America, and people should vote for the candidate that they think is most qualified to do the job.
Okay.
Now, I get applause for that. Yay!
Again, you would think.
Now that's to say, in the political climate we're in now, the way the mainstream media operates, you're always hearing about these polls and how is Obama polling versus Romney. I think there's a lot of pressure put onto people to vote with this whole "don't throw your vote away" thing. Well, that's because the polls say. Before the election even happens, who's going to win? And so you'd better go along with the winning team or you're throwing your vote away, as opposed to saying, like, does this candidate really reflect my values?
Right.
Does this candidate really seem like somebody who would be a good person just based on their own merit, as opposed to, like, which way is the wind blowing?
Well, that seems like common sense again that we were talking about, and I was saying about fallacies, and now you're talking about the bandwagon, unfortunately, which a lot of people, I think, vote that way as well, either or bandwagon, and I don't think it's a good voting system we have, obviously, but I don't think a lot of people see it as a fallacy in and of itself.
Well, a problem we have with our voting system is the spoiler effect, which is, of course, the don't vote for Ralph Nader because it's actually a vote for Bush. Effect, and we did another episode all about this, so I won't get too into detail on it, but it's possible to run elections without a spoiler effect. Now, here's something about that is that I don't think that the third parties should be blamed for the fact that they didn't create an election system that generates a spoiler effect. They're just stuck with trying to maneuver in that environment. So I've heard people say things like, oh, it's all Ralph Nader's fault that Bush was elected. I don't think that's true. I think that first off, it's ignoring the fact that he stole the election in Florida, okay, which Ralph Nader had nothing to do with. And furthermore, I don't think that people should be discouraged from running for president because there's already sort of this group consensus of who's going to win, and anybody else who's out there stating a contrary opinion is just detracting from that. I find that to be really reductionist. And
that you have the money to run, unfortunately that's a reality in our system that maybe if you are very wealthy, you have more, well, not maybe, definitely, if you're very wealthy, you have more likely chance to even run for a small office, much less the president.
Or if you take a political position that is seen as something that, like, a big corporate sponsor would want to see implemented.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So it tends to select out political opinions that don't have big money behind them. So I want to get into the phenomenon of the Obamabot, to use a word phrase that's been going around the internet, and I'll say something which is that part of my motivation here is that I've been in a prolonged series of internet conversations with people who are Obama supporters, okay, and I've been very critical of the president in those conversations. As a result of that, I've been called just about every insult put down that you can ad hominem attack.
That's all
okay,
they do.
that you can imagine, and
which is not an argument, by the way, people. If you're watching this and you do attack Colin or myself, saying that someone's a poo-poo head isn't a valid argument, or what have you. Put in your expletive there, but.
Yeah, it's like, well, I don't like the president's, farm bill policy, and then the response to that is, well, I think you're an idiot. Like, that doesn't belong in logical argumentation, okay? Like, and that, so pretty much, if you have to resort to that, you're basically admitting that you've run out of actual logical, reasonable things to say, okay? So just get that out of the way. And in these conversations, like, I've avoided using the term Obamabot because it's a derogatory term, and I've been trying to kind of keep the higher moral ground to sort of lead by example and say, hey, it's possible for people to have disagreements with each other and hash it out without attacking each other. But now that I've been insulted, in theory, now that I've been insulted so many times, I'm going to take this opportunity on the talk show that I helped originate to just say, Obamabot, 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 Obamabot. You're all a bunch of bots, okay? And the reason I'll say that is because I go to different places in the internet and I see the same talking points come up over and over from people who have no contact with each other. Okay, now what that tells me is that people are just like absorbing things from the media, absorbing things from a Democratic Party press release and parodying it, sock puppeting it, and repeating it without really putting a lot of critical thought into what they're saying. Okay?
And there's a lot of social control with that as well, where I was talking to someone and I told him I'm an activist, and he goes, well, of course you're voting for Obama, right? Just saying. And he said it also very, patriarchal, and he's bigger than me. And so that's a way where if you were maybe a little less comfortable with yourself,
patronizing
you might say,
you, yeah.
Yes. No, like he was just kind of guiding the, leading the witness, so to speak.
Yeah. So, okay, here's one thing that I've heard from Obama supporters is there's kind of, you can kind of break it down to like two different positions, and I call it the naive position and the attempt at pragmatism position. The naive position is people who think that Obama's a liberal, like they've just been like in a cave for the last 4 years or something like that. Okay, so and then the attempt at pragmatism position is to say, well, yes, there are flaws to Obama's policy, and no, from the point of view of somebody who would consider himself a progressive or a liberal, he's not all that. But he's better than Mitt Romney, so we just have to just everybody shut up about it until after the election. This is the thing I've been hearing. Okay, now here's my response to that, is that the National Defense Authorization Act, which is the military spending bill that comes up every year, this time around had this provision, okay, that was included in it. It has to do with indefinite detention. It's basically let's just get rid of any sort of due process of law, have people having to actually stand trial before you can just throw them in jail. Now, if the president decides he doesn't like somebody, hey, he can just throw them in jail, okay?
Which I said, I said if you set a precedent with a young man, Bradley Manninger at Guantanamo Bay, and I was also, just to say, what is a liberal? And if you consider yourself a liberal, you have to really challenge yourself, because I was attacked by a famous liberal, Christine Kraft.
Quote unquote famous
Yeah, and
liberal.
she said I was un-American outside of the womb or inside of the womb, and that she insulted my dead father.
Anybody who calls you an un-American is a McCarthyist, okay?
Yeah,
like you can't call yourself a liberal and use terms like un-American, and I just
But my point is that in her description it says, feminist liberal, and that in my experience isn't the case. And so we have to kind of challenge what is a liberal,
Well, I think that, liberalism, like the whole definition of that, the Democratic Party has slid so far to the right, and the voter base of the Democratic Party has gone right along with them. And what does the word liberal even mean anymore? Does that mean that you support drone bombings?
Or even progressive.
Does that mean that you support torturing enlisted soldiers in the U.S. military? I mean, is that liberalism? Come on. So, I want to make this point, which is the not until after the election argument. I brought up the National Defense Authorization Act. So Chris Hedges, Noam Chomsky, 5 other plaintiffs took the case to court and basically said that, look, we can't even do our job as a journalist under this law because we feel like we might fall under the purview of somebody who's like a terrorist support. Chris Hedges goes to the Middle East and interviews people who are associated with Al-Qaeda as a journalist, not because he endorses Al-Qaeda, but because he's reporting the news,
writing.
right? Okay.
Right.
So so he's saying, look, I'm afraid to do my job under this law, okay? And so there's been a back and forth in court. I guess the latest thing is that it's been reinstated. But anyway, I bring this up in the context of the not until after the election argument because, look, it was just within the last month or so that until it was reinstated, the judge had struck down this draconian provision of the National Defense Authorization Act. They didn't wait until after the election, okay? I think there's things that are more important than who is in the White House at any particular time. There's things like human rights are more important
But why
than
did they do that right before the election? Because if it was a hot-button issue in America, wouldn't they have waited or not have done that, And what's wrong with Americans that they didn't get angry on a mass scale? And I think there's a lot wrong with them.
That's a whole other question as to why do Americans tend to be politically apathetic compared to people who live in other countries. I mean, look what's going on in Spain right now, where they're surrounded the Congress and having these big mass demonstrations. So anyway, I want to get back to kind of talking about the arguments that people are using to say don't vote for those crazy third party people. That you got to stick to the Democrats. That's the only safe option that we have. Okay, and my response to that is, well, let's look at some things that Barack Obama said the last time around when he was trying to get elected. He said he was going to clean up Wall Street. He hasn't done that.
No, he cleaned up Occupy Wall Street, though.
And that's an interesting thing, which is another one of those contradictions that I've noticed. A lot of people, there are people out there who say that they support Obama and they support Occupy Wall Street. Now, the Obama administration was involved with the Department of Homeland Security and this is all information that's become public in coordinating a national crackdown on the Occupy movement. So if you support the Occupy movement, how logical is it to vote for someone who has been involved in working to undermine that movement? It doesn't make any sense
And we did just have the Occupy anniversary, so congratulations to the 99%.
How did that go?
It was wonderful. I did get clipped by a motorcycle police officer.
You had a little run-in.
Yeah, and then he acted like my elbow clipped him and ran him off course somehow. But, I basically got to yell at him and say some really fun stuff to the police, which helped me get out some anger from past incidences as well.
Sometimes you just need a catharsis, but be careful not to go to jail.
I don't care about that. I was at the back. I was blocking a little bit.
So some other things that Obama said back in 2008 when he was trying to get elected was he was going to protect habeas corpus. Well, we just had the discussion of the National Defense Authorization Act, which basically throws habeas corpus out the window. So that was a lie. Obama said that he was going to end warrantless wiretapping, which went on during the Bush administration. Now, I just recently saw a graph on the internet that shows how much warrantless wiretapping has gone on in the United States in the last 7 or 8 years or so. And you get to the year 2008, and the graph spikes. There's been way more warrantless wiretaps under Obama than there was even under Bush. So Obama's actually to the right of George Bush.
Well, the FBI
on that particular issue.
Right. The FBI just spent $1 billion on facial recognition software, and they've been harassing Julian Assange, Bradley Manning, and the people of Anonymous.
Well, clearly we don't need $1 billion to like put people into affordable housing or give them health care or anything like that.
You can throw it away on Facebook.
Much more important to monitor what people are talking about on the Twitters, right? And I had mentioned Obama's to the right of George Bush on the issue of habeas corpus. He's to the right of Ronald Reagan on the issue of cleaning up Wall Street. Ronald Reagan took Wall Street bankers who'd committed fraud and dragged them out of their big fancy buildings in handcuffs and threw them in jail. Okay, that's the arch conservative Ronald Reagan.
Makes me feel like this.
Oh, sad.
And I voted for Obama.
Sad donkey. I didn't. I voted for Nader.
Yeah.
Obama said that, and this is a verbatim quote. I wrote this down. He said he was going to crack down on lobbyists once and for all, and he said they will not work in my White House. Okay.
Literally laughable.
After he got into office, more than 40 former lobbyists have been put into the Obama White House. Okay. The list goes on. Those are just things that are direct contradictions of what he said he was going to do. And I've seen on
Keystone XL, they were pepper spraying the protesters. He said that wasn't going to happen. And also, because I am part Native American, I think the indigenous rights that Obama said he was going to respect, he hasn't respected that at all. I think that the people's land throughout the United States is just being disrespected in that case.
Keystone XL is the oil pipeline from the Canadian tar sands that the administration has made a push to build. They've kind of stalled on it a little bit because of the protests against it. Made it a politically unpalatable thing. Here's another one he lied about: the public option. He said there was going to be a public option in his health care plan. Instead, what did he do? He cut a deal with the insurance industry lobbyists, which he had come and meet with him at the White House. So those are some things that he's... also, here's another one, is collective bargaining rights. He said that if collective bargaining rights come under attack, and it's really interesting to go back and watch that footage now, because he didn't just say, like, if the unions have some problems, if some companies try to do union busting or something, that I'll be there. He specifically said, if there is an attempt to repeal collective bargaining rights, in that case, I will be there and walk the picket line with you. Well, he didn't do it in Wisconsin. He didn't do it in Tennessee. He didn't do it in Michigan. All states where that exact scenario of collective bargaining rights coming under attack played itself out. The Democratic National Committee treated the Scott Walker, not repeal, but what do you call it?
Recall.
Recall. That was the word I was looking for. Sometimes talk show hosts just can't even think of the words. The recall campaign, the Democratic National Committee just basically treated that like it was a non-issue. Well, the Republicans were pouring in all this out-of-state money. Well, look who won that election.
Well, how can we combat this a little bit? Because I'm thinking, the reason why we've gone so far I think to the right is because we do keep responding to these issues, these made-up issues, and also because of, obviously, the lobbyist money. But I think that we have this huge uninformed populace, and maybe you could call it the middle of the country. I don't want to be insulting, but, people that generally say, Mitt Romney is cool, and even in Prunedale, there's a guy that has a Mitt Romney sign. So we're so liberal, we're saying Obama's not enough for us, but there are those Americans that say Mitt Romney, and how do we communicate to those people?
I mean, that's a whole other issue. There is that why does Mitt Romney appeal to people? I think Mitt Romney appeals to people because they want to be that rich guy that stepped on everybody else's back to get up there and cheated on his taxes too.
Yeah, the 1% wannabes.
Yeah, they're right. The working class, Fox viewing public. In a way, like, I think that the Republican Party, which has gone far right, is definitely a threat to the well-being of the United States, but more and more the internet discussions that I've been having with people, I'm starting to feel that the people who are really adamant about voting for Obama are almost more detrimental to the political climate that we're living in now, because they're basically allowing for this Democratic Party, which pretends to be liberal and then sells out to the Republicans, or institutes policy that is basically identical to the Republicans. We just went down this whole list of the national security state, the warrantless wiretapping, the drone bombings in Pakistan that are creating atmosphere there where people are like afraid to go to the store. People are afraid to go to school in these areas because there's drones overhead 24 hours a day. And people who claim to be liberal, but then I say, oh, well, we're not going to object to that until after the election. Or they come up with some kind of talking point excuse. It's basically a rehashed Bush 2003 talking point. Here's what I want to say, is that I think there are some excellent third-party candidates running right now. And I don't want to be accused of being the guy who's trying to get Mitt Romney elected, which I've been accused of a bunch of times, and really it's so unoriginal. You all need to come up with a new line, okay? Like it's just old. Everybody says it. Okay,
well,
and so here's what I'm going to say in response to that is, here's what my position is I don't give a damn who you vote for. Vote for whoever you want to. Vote for whoever you think is best. If you think Mitt Romney is best, vote for him. If you think Barack Obama is best, vote for him. If you think Jill Stein or Gary Johnson or Rocky Anderson are best, vote for them. But here's what I will say is, if you're a first-time voter, I would advocate for you to vote third party, and that way the Obama people can't complain about it, okay? Because Obama's already got it sewn up in the polls, which is this whole thing about the polls. It's like anyway, but he's got it sewn up. So if it's somebody who's never voted before, at least they're not stealing votes from Obama, and people can't accuse me of going around advocating that, although I would argue that Obama's basically the most electable Republican who's running. So if that's not what you're into, I mean, really look at the issues. And here's just one last thing, I think we're going to close it out. If you're an Obama supporter, here's my challenge to you, is get on the internet, you're already on YouTube because you're watching the Magic Box on YouTube, okay? Run a search for Glenn Greenwald. Glenn Greenwald. That's Glenn with 2 N's. Green has 2 E's, okay? Glenn Greenwald. And my challenge would be, watch at least a half hour. If you have more of an attention span, watch an entire hour. Can you do it? Watch an entire hour of Glenn Greenwald interviews, which there's hours and hours of them to see out there on the internet, and really listen to what he has to say, and really think about it, and really parse his statements. And if you don't believe it, run a Google on it and do your own fact checking. And so that's my challenge, is if you're so certain that voting for Obama is the way to go, can you watch an hour of Glenn Greenwald clips on YouTube without changing your mind? I would like to see that happen.
You can't handle the truth.
You can't handle the truth. All right, this is the Magic Box Talk Show. I'm Colin, Clyde, Denica, DeFoy.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for watching. I hope I pissed off a bunch of Obamabots, because you've been getting on my nerves, okay? I don't think you can bully me. People try to bully me, and all it does is put more fire in my belly.